humanistic nature of Buddhism itself. So when we talk about humanistic Buddhism, humanistic aspect of Buddhism itself, I have shared with you various aspects such as the system of the Buddha himself, being a human and became a Buddha and not some messenger of God or son of God or something like that. And the second aspect I shared with you was the system of thought in Buddhism. It's not based on a myth, myths, not based on a myth or fairy tales about creation and things like that, but on the fundamental problems confronting human beings right here on earth. So again, the system of thought in Buddhism uh, show us that it is very humanistic in nature. Then I also share with you some Buddhist suttas to illustrate or to showcase that the Buddha actually uh, tell us through the suttas how we should practice our daily life. So here is an example of a question. Let's say I'm referring to the Mangala Sutta. So it discusses how Buddhist teachings may be applied to our everyday aspect of human life. In my lectures with you, I gave two samples. One is the Mangala Sutta, the other one is Sigalovada Sutta. And I think during the mock exam, I also share with you the Mangala, share with you, or I asked the question about Sigalovada Sutta. Now, here I'm sharing with you about Mangala Sutta. So when you want to, if you were to answer this question about Mangala Sutta, I think you should try to recite the whole sutta. Try to remember the whole sutta. The whole sutta has got only about 200 over words. It's not that difficult. If you can memorize the whole suttas, then you can answer this question with ease. Okay. This suttas is available in both Chinese and English version, and of course available in the Pali version. Okay? So if we were to answer this question, there are a few things that we expect you to know to cover. First, we have to roughly mention about the origin of this sutta. Okay, just one paragraph or two. Okay, the origin of this sutta taught by the Buddha at the Jetavana monastery, which was offered by Anantapindika. If you remember the sutta, then it's easier. Evang me suttang ekang samayang bhagava savatyam viharati. Jetavana Ananda Pindika Arame. So if you remember the sutta, you can actually write very fast. It was said that at one night while residing at the monastery, a Devata approached the Buddha and requested the Buddha to tell what are the true blessings of Mangala. And then the Buddha mentioned 38 blessings in 10 verses. So you have to try to cover the 10 verses. Okay, the first one, the Buddha mentioned about to associate with the wise, not to associate with the fools, and to honor those who are worthy of honors. I make a small comment. Here the Buddha started by advising us to have good human relationship, which is essential for our daily life. Then the Buddha moved on to verse 2, to reside in a suitable locality, to have done meritorious deeds in the past, and to set oneself in the right course. Then you just write another small short comment. Here the Buddha mentioned the importance of setting one's life's objective based on the foundation of good past deeds and present suitable environment. This is very relevant to our present human life. Then we go on to the next verse, verse 3, the Buddha talk about skill, okay? The importance of personal skills for a good human life, namely vast learning, perfect handicraft, and good speech, okay? Bahu sacanca, sipanca, vinayoca, susikito, subhashtaca, yawacha, okay? Then the Buddha moved on to talk about family life, a good family life. Herein is mentioned support of mother and father, okay, mata pitu upatanam, cherishing of children and having a blameless occupation. Then after that, From a good family life, then we extend to the social service, that is performing of dana, taking care of relatives and blameless actions. So having done your social service, then you have to talk about uh, spiritual realm. Okay, not good enough just to do social service, but to practice in a spiritual realm. Here, the Buddha advised on to dissociate and discard evil action, not to take intoxicants, and to be heedful to the Dhamma. And with this moral foundation, the Buddha then carry on to talk about spiritual foundation, spiritual development. Spiritual development, basically, they are the last three verses. The last three verses about spiritual foundation is about the Chinese called 文思修, listening to the Dhamma, discuss about the Dhamma, and practice or realization of Dhamma. So to listen to the Dhamma, we have regular hearing of the Dhamma, okay, which has got a precondition: humility, contentment, and gratitude. Okay, humility, contentment, and gratitude. Then the next one is about discussion on the Dhamma. Here you need patience, obedience, and association with monk. Then after that, tapocha brahmacharya cha arya satara dasanang Nibbana Sachikriyata. This is followed by self-restraint, pure life, and seeing of the noble truth and realization of Nibbana. Then ultimately, when you have realized the Nibbana, then you enjoy the free from all these vicissitudes of life, all the challenges in life, free from sorrow and defilement, and you remain peaceful and secure. Okay. Therefore, this sutta clearly demonstrates the humanistic nature of Buddhism. No gods or third party is involved, but only human effort. This is how we can answer that question on Mangala Sutta. Okay. Isn't it simple? Is it okay with you? Do you have
Looks
any
great.
question? Yeah. You have
Oh,
any question?
Sorry, I just said it looks great. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. You have no question, then I will move on to the next one. Okay. Okay. When we were talking about the humanistic nature of Buddhism in our first lecture, we also talk about the virtues of the Dhamma. Okay. So here a question is posed to discuss the 6 virtues of the Dhamma to illustrate why it is humanistic rather than theistic. So you have to remember the 6 virtues of the Dhamma. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo, Sanditiko, Akaliko, Hehi Pasiko, Opanayiko, Pachatang Veditabu Vinyuhiti. You cannot remember the Pali word, it's okay, but you have to remember the English word. So this question is not difficult to answer. If you can write down all the 6 there, at least you got 6 points already. Okay, or 25 points. Okay. And if each one you write, for each one you write some demonstrate that you understood them properly, that they are related to human nature. Then each point give you 4 marks. Then 4 times 6, you got 24 points already. It's not difficult. Okay. So these are also techniques of answering questions that I'm sharing with you. Okay, then the Dhamma taught by the Buddha is not some kind of secret message or hidden plan passed down from heaven or God to mankind through his son or messenger. Okay, so this is to contrast the humanistic nature of Buddhism with theistic nature of other religions. It is an open message derived from the Buddha's direct experience and then preached to the learners step by step, leading eventually to the goal of Nibbana. So obviously this is a humanistic message and not a speculative theistic message. Okay, so it's clear about this. So that's why it is called well expounded. Okay, well expounded. So well expounded, you got to explain a little bit what is meant by well expounded. It's through the Buddha's direct experience. It's not some kind of speculative knowledge or somebody whisper into his ears and then he came and tried to convey that message to us, or that or not that he was selected by God to convey that message, but through his own personal experience, and then he expounded that message to us step by step. Okay. Then talk about sanditiko. See, in theistic religions, we have to wait until we die to know the result, to know whether you go to heaven or hell. You have to wait until you die first. But the Dhamma is for us to see right here on earth. Sanditiko. If you know Pali words, ditti means see, to see. Okay, ditti. Sanditiko means to be able to see or to understand. Okay, so we can experience the joy and bliss of practicing the Dhamma right here on this earth. Okay, Sanditiko. Then Akaliko. The Dhamma is immediately relevant to the present time as the Dhamma deals with the human problem, not with speculative knowledge. The Dhamma is therefore timeless. Akaliko, we can say, is timeless or immediate. Okay? Why it is immediate? Because it is something that is related to our human problems, and if we practice, we can solve our human problems right here on earth. So I give you an example. Why it is said to be a Sanditiko and Akaliko. Let's say you practice dana. When you try to share something with somebody else or give away something that you possess dearly to somebody else, to help somebody else, then some kind of joy arises in you. And that is immediate. You don't have to wait until you go to hell or go to heaven to experience that. Okay. So this is unlike theistic belief, which had to modify stories from time to time. Okay. So Santitiko Akaliko. Then Ehi Pasiko. This one a lot of people know about this. Buddhism is the Dhamma is an invitation for us to come and see, come and investigate. Okay. It is the truth that can withstand investigation. Okay? The Buddha mentioned that you can come and test my teaching like testing gold in fire. I didn't write down here, but you can always incorporate that. So this is again a very humanistic approach, a departure from the theistic approach of asking people to come and believe. Okay. So again, the humanistic nature of Buddhism. Then the Dhamma, Opanayiko means leading to the goal. It would lead us to the goal, and the goal is Nibbana. Meaning to say, Nibbana, if you practice well, you can experience it right here on earth by human beings. So again, this is humanistic. Okay, Pacetang very tabu vinyuhiti. It means the Dhamma is to be understood by the wise individually. Okay, Pacetang very tabu vinyuhiti. Again, it is humanistic. You have to work out. This is a DIY. You have to work out your own salvation, not put your salvation in the hands of others and just do prayer and hoping that a God or something like that will save you. But here, the Dhamma talk about you work it yourself. So to be understood by the wise individually. You can't eat for somebody else can't eat for you. You have to do it by yourself. So again, it is not a theistic approach of relying on an agent or third party for your salvation. So this is about the nature of the Dhamma, the humanistic nature of the Dhamma. Okay, any question? You can remember all the 6? I think it's easier to remember 38, right? But actually, just now the Mangala Sutta 38 is difficult to remember. But if you break down into 10, it's not too difficult either. Okay, but no, but to remember the 10, you need a little bit of effort. But if you start practicing now, but I think within 1 week you should be able to memorize the whole sutta. Okay. Now, when we talk about humanistic Buddhism, we can't run away from the fact that we have to talk about Tai Chi. Okay, because Tai Chi in Han Buddhism or Chinese Buddhism was the first one to uh, talk about humanistic Buddhism, to use the slogan of humanistic Buddhism. So when he first started talking about humanistic Buddhism, he started talking about the 5 vehicles. So uh, we can't escape from this fact that we need to understand uh, Taisi's argument about humanistic Buddhism. So you may have to answer or explain why you agree, or whether you agree or not with his proposal of humanistic Buddhism as envisaged in his 5 vehicles. So this one, you need to remember at least the 5 vehicles. Okay. So the 5 vehicles are Purusayana, or the human vehicle, but we can't just put one Purusayana or the human vehicle, because then you only get 1 mark. You have to write a little bit more about Purusayana. Okay, very big. It is the beginning of our spiritual path. So to practice this one, we are advised to focus on the 5 precepts, so that we will be able to reborn among human beings. Okay, that's why in Buddhism, why there is so much stress on the 5 precepts, because it is believed that the 5 precepts is the one that will ensure our human form when we are reborn. Okay, we won't be born into a lower ram. Okay, so Purusayana. So we have to observe the precept. Then the second one is Devayana, or the Deva vehicle. So in this case, we practice the 10 wholesome action, or 10 kusala karma. 10 in the Pali word dasa, okay, dasa kusala karma. So to be able to go to the heavenly plane, okay, you need to practice 10 wholesome action, and then meditation, so that you can be reborn in in the God's plane. Then you have the Savaka Yana, Savaka, or the sound hearing vehicle. Okay, this entails the practice of renunciation and the hearing of the Four Noble Truths. Okay, here we are entering the fundamentals of Theravada Buddhism. That is, our objective is to liberate ourselves from the bondage in this cycle of samsara, life and death. Okay, and therefore we want to be liberated, so to say, and this is done by listening to the Dhamma. Listening to what? Listen to the Four Noble Truths. Okay, to understand, to listen and understand the Four Noble Truths. Then you will be reborn among the Savakas, means you will be reborn among the disciples of Buddhism, okay, or the followers of Buddhism. Then the next vehicle is called Pachika Buddhayana, or the enlightened by conditions vehicle, or Paticca Samuppada. Okay, so this one is concerned with practice. The practice is concerned with dependent arising. This one, the practitioner usually is one that who gain enlightenment through his own effort after realizing dependent origination, but not dependent on listening to another Buddha. So it's by own effort. But the difference between this and the Bodhisattva path is that after enlightenment, he would just remain in enlightenment and not helping others, not preaching. Okay, not like a Sammasambuddha that preached. So the 5th vehicle is Bodhisattvayana, which is always emphasized in Mahayana Buddhism. Okay, Bodhisattvayana vehicle. The practice here we talk about 6 perfections, so as to be born among the Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas are beings who vow to continuously bring other people to the other shores. If you can write down the 6 perfection, you will be better. Okay. And I think a lot of you would remember the 6 perfection. It will be good if you can write down the 6 perfection. So now we have to roughly elaborate a little bit. According to the Tai Chi, okay, he mentioned that at this Dharma ending age, if we follow the Savakayana, we will be condemned as pessimistic and escapism. Okay, Savakayana means we just not become follow the liberation vehicle, Savakayana, to liberate ourselves from birth and death, and not doing service to mankind or other things. Then we'll be condemned as pessimistic and escapism. But if we follow Devayana, the 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 vehicle of devas, then we want to become be born in the heaven. So this is actually considered super, superstitious and theism. Okay. Therefore, he advocated that a practitioner's approach should be the Purusayana. Okay. Purusayana means we go by human vehicle to develop our human character first, so that we can maintain the karma vipaka of being a human, so that we can maintain our develop our human character, so that we can remain as a human being, then only progress upwards towards the bodhisattva path. Don't forget, progress upwards to the bodhisattva path. Because some people condemn Tai Chi's path as just talking about human vehicle, which is not true, because he actually talked about bodhisattva, human vehicle as the foundation, but after that must move upwards towards bodhisattva path. So don't forget about mentioning bodhisattva path, where we have to learn to practice the 6 perfections. So make a conclusion. I think Tai Chi's approach is compatible with the humanistic nature of Buddhism as taught by the Buddha. Practical because before we talk about a big ideal of becoming a bodhisattva to save all beings, we should begin with the perfection of our human character first. If we cannot be a good human beings, how can we become a bodhisattva? Okay. Okay. We have covered 3 topics. So far, any question? No question? Very good. Okay. One of the characteristics of humanistic Buddhism is concern for human life. It's concern for social issues, and therefore involvement in politics. Okay. So a question is posed here. Some monks participate in politics to the extent of contesting for political positions, such as member of parliament. So the question is asked, to what extent can monks participate in politics? Okay. Sometimes when you look at the question is very long. Don't get panicked. Usually a long question is an easy question because it gives you a lot of hints embedded in the question, and it gives you the background of the question. But finally, it only asks you, to what extent can monks participate in politics? Okay. So a model of the answer, to what extent can monks participate in politics? I think we can get the answer by referring to the conduct of the Buddha. So first, we make reference to the Buddha. How did the Buddha show us? The Buddha was a prince. He renounced his worldly life to become a recluse in search of the truth. Here, the Buddha demonstrated that taking up the holy life of a recluse, by taking up the holy life of a recluse, he renounced his political role as a prince. He did not expect to be treated as a prince while living as a recluse. So the first demonstration by the Buddha when he became a monk was to show us that to become a monk, you have to leave your political role, you see, or your political position as a prince. But after becoming the Buddha associated himself closely with kings and princes to preach to them the Dhamma, but not to seek political power. So we know the Buddha associated himself with King Bimbisara, with Ajatasattu, with Pasenani of Kosala, and so on. So the Buddha associated himself with all these political figures of those days. And because of that, he was involved in politics in some way. When the Kolyas and the Sakyas were about to go to war over the water of Rohini, the Buddha intervened, meditated, and mediated, and caused a peaceful settlement. So some of the life stories of the Buddha have to be told here to illustrate the Buddha's involvement. Because from here you can see to what extent the Buddha was involved. So when Vadidabu wanted to conquer the Sakya, the Buddha twice stopped Vadidabu's army by sitting in the middle of the road where the army passed by. Twice Vadidabu withdrew his army out of respect for the Buddha. Okay, and then another case when Ajatasattu wanted to invade the Vajrayan country, the Buddha had a conversation with Ananda in front of Ajatasattu's minister. There, in that conversation, the Buddha indirectly conveyed a message to the minister that since the Vajrayana practice the 7 factors of non-regression, it would be impossible to destroy the Vajrayans. And hearing this, the minister later advised Ajatasattu not to invade the Vajrayan countries. So, if you want to relate the Buddha stories, you have to mention about the Buddha's frequent mingling with kings and princesses. Mention their names if possible. King Bimbisara, King Pasenani, King Ajatasattu, and so on. I didn't write here, okay? Then you mentioned about the Kolyas and the Sakyas case, the Vadidabu's case, the Vajrayan's army case. So how many already? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 main points here already. Okay. So from the above, we can see that the Buddha, as a recluse, did not seek political office or political position. But he was involved in politics only in the sense of preaching the Dhamma to the rulers. Okay? Mediate and settle disputes. He did not make himself a party of dispute, but stand above dispute so that he could settle disputes. Okay? So that is the role of the Buddha, that he did not say that I'm a Buddha, I'm liberated, I am beyond all these worldly affairs. You first go and settle yourself. No. He himself got involved, but tried to cause about a peaceful settlement. But he did not ask to be rewarded in any way, and he did not ask for any political position. So, therefore, I think monks can be involved in politics only to the extent of advising politicians, settling dispute among conflicting parties. But they should not hold office. It means they should not be contesting or becoming members of parliament. Okay, if you disagree with me, it's okay. You can write something else. Okay, here I'm just sharing my opinion. By becoming members of parliament, they would become a party to the frequent conflicts of partisan politics. Okay, because by contesting as member of parliament, you are under the banner of one party, and that party always have some opposition, some party opposing you. So you become a party to this frequent conflicts of partisan politics. When a monk should be playing the role of settling disputes, or I use the word middle ground. Monk should be acting as the middle ground. Okay. And also in the present day politics, members of parliament are a full-time job, and a monk is also a full-time job. So how are they going to handle these 2 jobs well when these 2 jobs are actually diametrically opposite paths? One leading to worldly gain, the other to Nibbana. Okay, this is, if you can quote from Dhammapada verse 75, it will be much better to show that actually monk's life is the path leading to Nibbana, which is against the our normal worldly life. Our normal worldly life is for material gains, okay, for fame, okay. So, and politicians, full-time politicians, would be involved in that. So these are, to me, diametrically opposite. Whereas if monks were to be involved in social service, in which is to perform dana to the public, or to become lecturers or professors in the universities, this is to provide teachings or advisory. So it is not diametrically opposite the monk's life. It is parallel to the monk's life. So that is not cannot be compared. I mean, monks performing social service or monks becoming lecturer cannot be compared with monks involving in politics. Okay. I used to mention, I did not mention here, I used to mention, politics is about what? Politics is fundamentally about allocation of resources. Finally, it's all about resources, human resources, financial resources. Politicians decide where to put the resources, how to distribute the resources. Religious life, monk's life, it's not talking about religious, all these resources. It's talking about values, talking about compassion, about doing good deeds, about metta, about love. So how these values are to be applied in the politics is through our teachings, okay? But not to be to get ourselves involved to become a full-time politicians. If you want to take the role of being a teacher, okay? So this is my brief answer. You have any questions so far? No? Okay. When we talk about humanistic Buddhism, especially in China, we have to talk about Tai Chi. Then after that, we cannot miss his disciple, Venerable Yin Sun. Venerable Yin Sun actually modified Tai Chi's doctrine of humanistic Buddhism slightly. Okay. Therefore, Tai Chi is considered today one of the most outstanding proponents of humanistic Buddhism in China. He summarized his proposition into the four main areas of core theme, doctrinal principle, contemporary trend, and core mental development. To discuss these four in more details. In one of his treatises, the Venerable Yin Sun wrote about what is humanistic Buddhism in short, and he mentioned these four areas. So, if you want to answer this question, you need to know the four core themes, what they are all about, and just illustrate them. Okay. Venerable Yin Sun mentioned that core theme of humanistic Buddhism is from the core theme. Okay, you remember all the core theme. This is already mentioned in the question, so you can't miss it. What is the core theme? The core theme is from human to bodhisattva to Buddhahood. This is similar to Venerable Tai Chi's argument. From human vehicle to bodhisattva vehicle. So the core theme is from human to bodhisattva. That is on the premise of a human being vow to practice the bodhisattva path and become Buddha when the bodhisattva path is completed, is perfected. He emphasized not to begin with becoming ghosts or devas. Why he mentioned that is because that was prevalent in China at that time. Okay. But he mentioned in this particular quarter, he mentioned we must acknowledge the fact that we are still human beings with defilements. We must acknowledge that. Okay. So we must have right understanding and to have a compassionate mind to serve others. So from human to bodhisattva does not mean that you have to wait until you are so perfect that then only you can serve others. Then only you can be compassionate to others. Yin Sun emphasized the point that we have to practice with our own defiled body. 带着烦恼身行菩萨道. Okay. Then second one is about his doctrinal principle. One is easier. He mentioned three things. You got to remember three things. Okay. Unity of the Dhamma and Vinaya, unity of condition origination with voidness. Okay. 缘起跟空性的合一 okay. Unity of self benefit and benefit others. Okay. 自利利他的合一 okay. Now he said the Dhamma, so you cannot just put like that. After that, no elaboration. You have to elaborate a little bit. He said that the Dhamma leads and the Vinaya regulates. Both must be treated with equal importance. Okay. The Dhamma is like the light that shows the way. But as we walk along the way, we must regulate ourselves. We must have some kind of rules and regulations. So the Dhamma leads and the Vinaya regulates. Okay. So both must be treated with equal importance. Then he mentioned about unity of condition, origination, and voidness. This is because of the Mahayana, the great debate in Mahayana Buddhism. Some people emphasize on Kongxing or voidness. Some people emphasize on Yanqi or condition origination. Yingsun mentioned that these two are actually compatible and therefore they must be together. Okay. Then for the next one, he said unity of self-benefit and benefit others. So while vowing to benefit others, we should not ignore our own self-purification and development. Okay. Therefore, we should purify one's mind, learn as much as possible, so that we could help others. So the premise is compassion and action is the premise is compassion and the action is the practice of Bodhisattva path. Okay. So this practice of benefiting others, actually we also benefit ourselves. And to benefit others, we must first practice our own self. Okay. Then he talked about contemporary trends. That's what he talked about. When he talked about humanistic Buddhism, he always emphasized the point that humanistic Buddhism is to treat the ills of the world today or the ills within Buddhism today. 对峙, okay? The problem in Buddhism. So, according to Yingsun, there are three important trends that we should talk about: the era of the youth, the era of this world, and the era of collectiveness or organization. Okay, youth does not mean that we forget about the age, but it means we have to place importance on attracting youngsters to Buddhism, emphasize the benefiting others. Era of this world means Buddhism or Buddhists must stay connected to this world, to have concern for worldly affairs, to preach the Dhamma, and to be of service of mankind. Okay. And then era of collectiveness means the Sangha must be legitimized, more in compliance to the teachings of the Buddha. And lay Buddhists must also be properly organized to benefit others. So not only the Sanghas must be well trained, knowledgeable in the Dhamma, but also the lay people must also organize themselves so that they can benefit others. Okay. Then he mentioned about cultivation of the mind. Okay. The fourth one that he mentioned. Okay. From the beginning. The fourth one. Okay. The core theme, the doctrinal, contemporary trend, and core mental development. See, you can't miss from the fact that in Buddhism, we always come back to the mind. Okay. So the Buddha mentioned about core mental development. Sorry, Venerable Yingshun mentioned about core mental development. Then here he mentioned three important factors: faith or saddha, wisdom or panya, and compassion or karuna. Okay. So he mentioned the act of benefiting others based on these three mental powers is said to be the practice of Bodhisattva. So he gave example. He said, with faith, but without wisdom, only brings ignorance. Some people just have the faith. I have the faith, but no knowledge, no wisdom. So you become ignorant. But if you have wisdom, you have without faith, but with wisdom, but without faith breeds wrong views. Okay, because you don't have the faith, you tend to develop wrong views. Don't have the faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, you develop wrong views. So further, if one has faith and wisdom but lacks compassion, but if you lack compassion, then that is insufficient for that is actually to him, then means you are like selfish, you only thought by your own self liberation. Okay. only good enough for your self-liberation. On the other hand, if one lacks faith and wisdom, but compassionate to help others, one would eventually fail as a bodhisattva. If you don't have faith and wisdom, but you just simply have compassion, you would fail as a bodhisattva. You cannot become a bodhisattva. So these are the three elements, Saddha, Panya, and Karuna, that mentioned by the Ying Sun. So this is how he developed he put into simple terms his concept of humanistic Buddhism. So this is not difficult if you know how to break it down into 4 parts, and the 4 part is already given to you. First, so you talk about the core theme, human path to bodhisattva, human path to bodhisattva path. Then, in terms of doctrinal principles, there are at least 3 items that we cannot miss: unity of the Dhamma and Vinaya, unity of conditioned origination with voidness, unity of self-benefit and benefiting others. And contemporary trend, again, there are 3 things here: era of the youth, era of this world, and era of collectiveness. And finally, the 3 mental development factors. So if you mention all the keywords, I think you wouldn't fail, okay? All right. You have been listening to me all the time without asking any question. I suppose all of you are already very well prepared.
Just typing away. It's just like the old days.
Okay. So that's a question about Vietnam. This is a classical case of a socially engaged Buddhism. Okay, and in fact, the term socially engaged Buddhism could be traced back to the events in Vietnam. The word was coined by the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. So a question is posed about the stories in Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, Buddhist monks in Vietnam took to the streets and held demonstration and self-immolation. Thich Nhat Hanh described this as a socially engaged Buddhism. Discuss why those monks did so and how do you view self-immolation. So the socially engaged Buddhism, the first part is, again, I tell you, the first part is to give you the background story. But the question here is discuss why those monks did so, okay? So, and how do you view self-immolation? So basically 2 parts. So this is about stories, okay? If you are good in history, then it's easy for you, okay? You have to know to write down the events leading to the engagement of monks with the government of those days, okay? So we mentioned about during the Vietnam War, Buddhist monks in Vietnam took to the streets and held demonstration and self-immolation. The overriding cause for this was the persecution or suppression of Buddhism by the Ngo Dinh regime. So you mentioned about what Ngo Dinh did to antagonize the Buddhists at that time. Soon after Ngo Dinh, a Roman Catholic, came into power, he began to suppress Buddhism and try to promote his Catholic faith. So among the suppressive measures were, I have listed here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I don't think you can remember 10, but at least if you write 5, all the demos, you can find from the PowerPoints I gave to you, the chapter on Vietnamese Buddhism, all the suppressive measures introduced by the Ngo Dinh regime at that time, okay? So I don't have to repeat this. You can go through the slide. You will know all the 10 points that I have mentioned. So having mentioned 10, but if you cannot mention 10, at least about 5. Then things came to a height in early May 1969 when Buddhists were not allowed to fly sorry guys, I think it should be 1963. You please check, Maybe I typed wrongly. Okay, things came to a height in early May 1963 when Buddhists were not allowed to fly the Buddhist flag on Vesak Day, but just before that, the Roman Catholics had been allowed to fly the Vatican Church at a celebration of the Archbishop Gotin Tuk of Hui, who is a Dim's brother. Okay. So when the Buddhists disobey, police fired into the crowd, killing 9 people and wounding 4 people. And this is called the Hui Pat Dan shooting. Okay. Pat Dan means in Chinese is 4 Tan, means the Buddha's birthday. Okay. Hui is the place. Sun Hua. Okay. So after the incident, monks and lay people then carry out demonstration and making demands on the government. But the government refused to budge. Okay. The frequency and size of protests increases as time refused to comply to the Buddhist demand. Then on 11 July, Venerable Thich Quang Duc carried out self-immolation in a busy street in Saigon. But after that, after the self-immolation of Thich Quang Duc, still the Diem regime refused to budge, and there were more protests and 5 more self-immolation. Okay. Okay, so this was the story. And how do you view the next part? How do you view this self-immolation? Okay. Some people say this is suicide, but suicide is due to losing hope in this life and hoping to escape from the suffering in this life. But self-immolation in this case is an act of utmost courage, trying to express a message in the most forceful way, to the extent of even willing to sacrifice one's life. This is dana of the highest degree in Buddhism. We call it dana paramita. It should be dana uparamita. There are 3 degrees of dana in Buddhism. The normal dana that we give food or we give money to other people, that's normal dana. Then you have dana paramita, dana that say part of your body, for example, donation of blood to others. Then the dana uparamita is perfection. This is already in the perfection degree. That means the highest, where you are willing to sacrifice your life. That's why in the Buddhist story, you have the story of the Bodhisattva in his past life threw himself into a den of tigress to be eaten by the tigress, so that the hungry tigress would not eat her own offspring. So this is uparamita. You can quote Thich Nhat Hanh, man commented that it was a political act calling attention to all the injustices being perpetrated against the South Vietnamese people by the government of Euro-American imperialism. It is not a suicide, not even a protest. What the monks said in the letters they left behind before burning themselves aim only at alarming and moving the hearts of the oppressors and at calling the attention of the world to the suffering of the entire that endured by the Vietnamese. To burn oneself by fire is to prove that one's message is of the utmost importance. So this is some of the Vietnam Thich Nhat Hanh's explanation. The Vietnamese monk, by burning himself, that he can endure the greatest of suffering to protect his people. Therefore, to express a will by burning oneself is not to commit an act of destruction, but to perform an act of construction, to suffer and to die for the sake of one's people. This is not suicide. Okay. Okay. This was about Vietnam. Any questions so far? All right. Okay. Question 7 is about the contribution. Some of these things got jumbled up. Got jumbled up. Contribution of Anagarika Dhammapala. Okay, when we talk about Buddhist movement, we cannot be just talking about Buddhist movement in East Asia. We have to talk about South Asia, especially Sri Lanka. Therefore, we have to deal with at least one question on Sri Lanka. And in Sri Lanka, Anagarika Dhammapala is said to be one of the pioneers that brought about a Buddhist renaissance in the island state. Very much similar to Yang Rensang or Yang Renhui in China, who brought about a revival of Buddhism in China. So, describe the contribution of Anagarika Dhammapala. And there's a sub-question about humanism promoted by Tai Chi in China. You call it humanistic Buddhism. But in Sri Lanka, the Reformation movement did not carry the slogan. Okay? But however, Professor Obeyesekera labeled the Reformation Buddhism as Protestant Buddhism. So discuss why it is Protestant. So this question has got two parts. Okay, I make a simple list of Anagarika Dhammapala's contribution to Buddhism. Okay, you can find it in your slide also. First, he make people feel proud of their religion. Okay, at that time when Buddhism or Buddhists were looked down upon as superstitious and uneducated people, and Buddhists themselves lost self-esteem and aping the Western way, Dhammapala, through his speeches and writing, brought about an awakening. He himself even changed his name from David to Dhammapala. So gradually, people began to take pride in their own region. So this is a major contribution of Dhammapala. Number two major contribution is he founded the Mahabodhi Society in Colombo in 1891. And this society propagated Buddhism to the West and have branches in England and USA. Recently, I was doing a research on Malaysian Buddhism, and I found that some of our early Buddhists in Malaysia around 1950, they were also members of this Mahabodhi Buddhist Society. That shows that the Mahabodhi Buddhist Society was quite influential, quite a global Buddhist movement organization at that time, considering that air transport was still not available, not commercially available at that time. People have to travel by sea only. Okay. So he founded Mahabodhi Society, and the Mahabodhi Society, one of the greatest contribution is to get back the management of the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya. You all know Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya. During the course of time, they were taken over by the Hindus. So it was managed by the Hindus, and Anagarika Dhammapala make initiatives to try and gain back the management of this place, and file legal suits against the management. And it was eventually, after his death in 1947, then only part of the Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya is back to Buddhism. Today, there are supposed to be 4 trustees in the Mahabodhi Society, in the Mahabodhi temple of Bodh Gaya. But out of 4, 2 are Buddhists, 2 are Hindus. Okay. And number 4, he also contributed to the restoration of the Sarnath temple. Okay, the place where the Buddha first preached the Dhammacakka Pavattana Sutta. Okay. Then his contribution, one of the earliest pioneers in internalized or global Buddhist movement, visited England, okay, and then China, Japan, Thailand, France, and Italy, and so on. And during his visit to China, you can mention this, he met Yang Renshan, and they discussed about the project of bringing Buddhism back into India. And this prompted, I think this one I did not mention to you during the course of my lecture. I somehow missed or forgot. Because of Anagarika's interaction with the Yang Renshan, Yang Renshan was prompted to start his Buddhist college with the objective of training monks proficient in English to preach in India later. So Anagarika actually had some influence over Yang Renshan, okay? And then during his visit to England and America, he secured valuable financial support on the establishing of a Buddhist center in London in 1926. Just to share with you, when Anagarika Dhammapala was trying to raise funds to set up Buddhist society in London and New York, actually a lot of people objected. They said, we can't even take care of our own house. Why are you channeling money to the West? So he was heavily criticized. But in retrospect, he was actually a man of great foresight. He was one of the earliest to bring Buddhism to the West. Now, part B of the question, second part of the question about Protestant Buddhism. Okay, in what way it is called Protestant? It is called Protestant Buddhism. So we all know in Sri Lanka, under the influence of the Christians, they built schools, hospitals, welfare centers all over the island, and these somehow influence the Buddhists. So the Buddhists also similarly built schools, carry out the carol singing during Vesak, okay, chanting of certain jatakas in the funeral houses, and organize Buddhist Sunday schools and so on. So it is Protestant in two ways. Number one, it is influenced by the Protestant ideals, such as freedom from religious institution, freedom of conscience, and focus on individual interior experience. And number two, it is itself a protest against the claims of Christian superiority, colonialism, and Christian missionary work aimed at weakening Buddhism. So it is a Protestant in the same sense that it is a protest against a Christian evangelization. Okay? The first part is a protest against the traditional Buddhist institutions. So we want to do the way we think is the correct way. We have our own conscience, our own individual experience. We do it our way. Okay. Any questions so far? All ready to go? Okay. When we talk about socially engaged Buddhism, we need to find some doctrinal support or argument to make to see that Buddhism is compatible with social engagement. There is always this argument that we Buddhists, we should focus ourselves on our own self-cultivation. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, meditate, okay? Then when you are happy and keep yourself happy, okay? But there is another school that says, out there are so many problems. And when you want to practice dana, how far and to what extent can you practice dana when there are problems that keep popping up? Don't you want to tackle the problems at the root? So there's a school that says that you must be socially engaged. You must try to solve the social problems. But how do you reconcile them in terms of the Buddhist concepts? Okay. So while Buddhism emphasizes on personal cultivation and socially engaged Buddhism emphasizes on addressing social issues, so how can these two be made to be compatible or to reconcile with each other? So there are different ways of dealing with these issues. So I make it simple. Let's look at how David Lloyd do it. So how do you reconcile it by looking at the David Lloyd's argument. So my way of answering this question is simply like this. Personal cultivation and social engagement are in fact two aspects of the same development process, like two sides of a coin, okay? So they are not separated or diametrically opposite, but they are two sides of a coin, okay? It all involved in a same development process. Self-cultivation is a human development process. Social engagement is also a development process, okay? So I mentioned by ignoring social issues, okay, you just ignore the social issue and just concentrate on our so-called self-cultivation, then it only reinforces our sense of self, or we, or the very ego or ego that we try to overcome in our spiritual practice in the first place. Can you imagine when you talk about spiritual practice, you try to let to let go your ego, but at the same time you ignore all the social issues. Therefore, you are actually reinforcing your own ego. So how can we claim to be compassionate or sincere when one is ignoring the suffering of others? Okay. But on the other hand, by focusing on issues and ignoring our own self-cultivation, will cause us to burn out eventually, for we would lack the power of personal spiritual practice to carry on lasting social engagement. So on the other hand, if we just concentrate on social issues, but you do not develop your own self, you would eventually burn out. For example, without practicing yourself, your compassion may wane, okay? You may lose faith, you may feel frustrated. So all this can make you burn out, and you may not be able to carry on lasting social engagement. Okay. And there's one more part. With our spiritual practice, we will be able to see clearly that social issues or social dukkha is similar to our personal dukkha. Both are rooted in the delusion of self. And also, through our spiritual practice, then we will be able to see that our problem and the social problems, they are all rooted in dukkha. Okay. That you can, when you deal with this issue, you must not forget about institutionalized greed, hatred, and delusion. Okay, the three evil roots of greed, hatred, and delusion that we try to overcome in our personal cultivation are similarly found in social issues. And the worst part is today's social issues are fundamentally due to the institutionalized greed, hatred, and delusions. Rampant consumption and profiteering. And you can give some example. Just give your own example. I'm just giving you some example. For example, you talk about institutionalized greed. What do you mean by institutionalized greed? For example, over profiteering of big corporations. Okay, lack of corporate social responsibilities. These are all examples of greed. Hatred, arms sales. Okay, nuclear weapon proliferation. Okay, and delusions, religious extremism, nationalism, all these, or media manipulations, all these are examples of institutionalized delusions. So you can give your own example. Okay. So having dealt with the first, we talk about we talk about if you ignore social issue, then you are reinforcing your own ego. If you focus on social issues and not your own self-development, you would easily be burned out. And if you focus on spiritual practice, you can also see clearly that the dukkha of oneself and the dukkha of social suffering are the same. And you can see that the dukkha of social suffering is due to institutionalized greed, hatred, and delusion. You can give your own example. So having realized all these things, we must bring about a social awakening. Okay. once you realize that social issue and personal spiritual cultivation are two sides of the same coin, that's the first step. It's a social awakening. Okay. Then you can look for solutions, but we are not, or David Lloyd says, we are not giving you a solution directly. Okay. Just like in Buddhism, a lot of things are not direct solution, but the path, the methodology, the techniques to get your answer. Okay. So David Lloyd say, in this case, we are not giving you the solution directly, but to work out together. Okay. So to work out the solution together, he proposes three approaches. First is personal practice. Okay. Because if we cannot transform ourselves, it will be difficult to transform others. Personal practice. Second is commitment to non-violence. And the third is awakening together. Not that the other party is more inferior and I am more superior, but that, like in humanistic Buddhism, awakening together means benefit oneself and benefit others. So we are together to be awakened, not one party trying to save the other party. Okay. So this is a little bit academic question, but this is a question that helps us to understand social issue from the perspective of the three evil roots. So if you look at all these sample questions and guidelines that I have given to you, you will notice that there are some very important keywords. So in answering questions, we must not miss those keywords. Keywords are the ones that always give us the marks. Okay. Okay. What else do you want now? What else do you need? I think I have shared with you almost everything.
So I know this is
Yeah,
barely scratching the surface as to like what we covered through class, but if we use this as a general study guide for the actual final, we should be in good shape.
Yeah.
Or
okay. Well, actually, in pedagogy or the learning of adults, I don't quite agree to the traditional way of trying to memorize everything. You know, for adult learning, we learn what we can learn through our mind, but when we think and we digest and then we output them, okay, as we should see it. So not so much of memorizing, but somehow or other in modern days education, we can't run away from the fact that there are some key points that we need to memorize. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep, that too.
Yeah.
By going over all these 8 questions, that's great with all that information. But also there are so much of the names and the places that we have to memorize. Right? You expect us to memorize and to know all the names and places.
Well, it's advisable to memorize. In fact, it's already very little. Well, I think this is only 10% of what I have shared with you throughout the lecture, right?
Yeah, I say the concept, yes, but I just thought about the names. You mentioned that pretty many people's names.
Well, we've had months to study this on our own.
You know, once you learn this and you have tried to memorize as much as you can, after a little while, all this will come to you naturally. I also don't know how it comes to me like quite naturally like that. When you mention some of these names, it just comes in like that. Okay. So in Chinese, we say once you are immersed into it, you will eventually absorb some of these things. Okay.
Okay.
But I think this class should be easier than the Abhidharma and things like that, right?
Thank you for going over these questions in such detail with us. It's very helpful.
Yes, very, very
In
much.
fact, this is just a rearrangement from all my slides, because in my slide I put all the points, but sometimes you can't see how the points are connected. That's why I put in essay forms. Okay. I will upload this one into your Slack. Okay.
Thank you so much. You put in so much time and effort, and it's been
Yeah.
absolutely awesome having you as a teacher. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So, if that is all, then I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dato.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dato.
This
Thank
gives us
you.
a lot to, the information, and I think we feel much confidence in the practice.
Well, in my conversation with the university said, you have classwork, right? The assignment. So the assignment actually is to help the student to pass, because the assignment, usually people do well in the assignment. So by doing well in the assignment, you would score, let's say 40% of the marks. You are already at the passing mark. So even here, you are not on the passing mark. You eventually should pass if you have done well in your assignment. Okay. Well, university's objective is to pass students, never to fail students. Okay.
Yeah.
Educationalists all know about this. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All
Thank
the
you.
best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dato.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the final.
Okay. Your final is on July.
July.
Not this coming weekend. 2 weeks from now, July 10th.
July 10.
I see. Your final exam means you are going to answer only these 8 questions or a lot more.
What?
They
Or-
will give us
Your-
8 questions and we will answer 4 of the questions.
Only on humanistic Buddhism, is it?
Right.
Oh, okay, I see. Then
So we
how-
answer
why-
4.
Then why didn't this exam was conducted? Why didn't this exam conducted immediately after the class during that time?
That will be great then.
We will remember.
Yeah, that's the mystery question. But apparently this is how they do it. So they
Yeah.
wait
I was
until we
wondering
forget.
why, because you all have to study another subject, and the 2 subjects are combined together into one exam quiz.
This is the British style. When I was in United Kingdom, that's how we do. We do all the subjects in one final. We study them over.
Yeah,
And
we've
then
had
that.
we've had 2 classes after you. So yeah, we've had lots of opportunity to forget everything that you taught us.
Indeed.
We're glad to go over, refresh.
All right. Okay. So wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
Around. Is Raymond Kong Yan around? Kong
No,
Yan Chin.
she's not in the chat.
Oh, okay.
No, not in here in the Zoom.
Okay. But I need to go to learn from her how to go into the Google class.
Oh, Corey can teach you that.
I can.
Corey.
You really all need to stop putting the students in charge of.
Oh, okay. You are in charge.
So
How-
did
how
you
to go into-
And one on the teacher.
did you get an email to join? I believe you did.
Yes. I received that. I already opened that and I already entered the class. But what do I do after that? Just wait for the day.
Yeah, you want the student to send in our exam, turn in our paper.
Yeah, I see you in the classroom. So come exam time, I don't know how Venerable Kong Yen would know, but I don't know who's the one who's issuing the final. I don't know if Kalenia is or Venerable Kong Yen is,
Venerable Kong Yen will do that.
but she will upload the file into the classwork section of Google Class. Everybody will get it at the exact same time. That way there's no email issues or anything like that. And then we'll all start and do our assignment or do our exam. And then when we're done, we'll re-upload it to the class. And you Kalenia and Venerable Kungyen should receive it all at the same time. Outside of that, I don't know how Google Class works. It looks like you're already accepted the invite and you're in the class though. That's all I know.
So on that day, I think I will just enter and then you guide me through. Okay.
Yeah, you'll be in the Zoom room, which will be the same number that you're in right now, and you'll be in Google Class at the same time. So,
Zoom room means I have to enter the Zoom to enter the Google Class.
you'll have to ask Venerable Kungyen about it. We have to be in the Zoom room. I don't know if you have to be as well. I think that's just so that everybody can keep an eye on the students. And
Yeah, Dato has to be in the Zoom room also.
okay, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So I'll be in the Zoom room. Huh?
Yeah. So it's just so that you can keep an eye on the students, make sure we're not like, I don't
But
know.
these high tech things doesn't mean that you can doesn't mean that students cannot make reference to outside materials. Because you
So
have two computers, you have another computers with all the answer ready.
yeah, I mean, I guess if you're cheating on a Buddhist exam, you're not Buddhist, all right.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I thought Google Class is something so high tech that you can't do any reference to outside materials.
So
Is it like that? No.
Google Class is used a lot in schools, but especially on Chromebooks. Now there are ways that teachers can lock a Chromebook to where if they hand a student an assignment through Google Class, that their computer won't go anywhere else besides the homework. But there's nothing saying that that student couldn't have their phone out as well. And that's the purpose of having Zoom open so that everybody has their camera open and I'm not sitting there like, oh, what's the answer to this one? But there's also add-ons that Google Class can use that can like pull search history. And I don't know if Kalenia is going to that extreme, but there's a lot of, I don't exactly know what's all going on. If I did, I'd be more than just a student. So
Oh,
yeah, he's muted. His camera's off. Yeah, Dado, your microphone is muted if you are talking.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was talking to myself. Okay. So wish you all the best. I think I will end here. I wish all of you all the best in your examination.